Hello, this is Randy Ewert, aka CT Sped Math Dude. I created this video to talk to you about a situation that often arises in terms of evaluating a student's mathematical ability, and that is assigning a grade level to represent the overall student's math ability. We hear that for reading, we say a student's at a third grade or fourth grade reading level, and that's pretty appropriate. That's a valid way of talking about it because the reading is much more linear. What I'm going to show you in this video is that the math is not as clean as that, and therefore assigning a single grade level is not really useful information in terms of trying to help your student. To help unpack this, I'm going to use the Common Core State Standard domain progression. The domains are really just the math topics that are covered, and then it shows you the sequence of them and when they're covered. So let me explain the chart first, and then I'll get back to talking about what a fourth grade math level means or doesn't mean. So what you have here is, first you have the different grade levels, and then you have the different domains or topics. So this counting and cardinality is scheduled to be covered in kindergarten for students. Now, obviously, you could still address it later on if a student falls behind, but that's when it's scheduled to be formally covered in kindergarten classes. By the way, cardinality is counting up the number of objects that are in a set, and then if there are 6 objects, you know then the total number is 6, and that's what cardinality means. Now you can see some others. You see when base 10 is covered from kindergarten to 5th grade, and fractions covered from 3rd grade to 5th grade. The one that may stand out is algebraic thinking. So what the heck is algebraic thinking? Well, what that is using the math, using multiplication, subtraction, addition, and division, and to solve problems, solve word problems, and using the math to come up with patterns or to describe patterns that you see. And what it does is it leads into the actual algebra that the student would eventually work on. So that's how this chart works. Now, let's get back to determining a grade level for math. Let's say you have a student, let's say your student is in 6th grade, and let's say that the student tested at a 4th grade level. Well, let's unpack that. If a student tested at a 4th grade level, that's the overall average, so to speak. Well, maybe your student is okay with ratios and is okay with base 10. Then maybe he had trouble with fractions. Maybe he's okay with algebraic thinking and then moved on to algebra content and is doing okay. But he's having a lot of trouble with geometry and having some trouble with measurement data, which leads into some problems with statistics. So maybe he's cruising along with this row and cruising along just fine with this row, but not so well with the other 3 rows. Maybe he's testing with these lower ones, maybe he's testing at a 3rd grade level, But for these higher ones, maybe he's testing, maybe he's doing fine, or maybe he's even testing higher. Maybe he's at a 7th grade level with some of these because he's really getting it. I've seen that happen. So just saying that the student's at a 4th grade level doesn't really unpack what's going on. Here's an analogy for that. Imagine you're going to see your doctor and you get a full physical, and then afterwards he or she says, I have an overall grade for your health, B minus. And that's all the information you get. And then he or she says, you know, good to see you, come back and see us in a year from now. Go ahead and schedule your appointment. You leave thinking, what the heck is wrong? I mean, some things are going well. I'm very healthy in some ways, but then in other ways, there's something wrong. So maybe I'm an A in some areas, and maybe I'm at a D or even an F in some other areas. And now, of course, you're worried because that B minus didn't give you enough information about your health. Well, the same thing happens here. So if you're just testing at a 4th grade level, if a student's just testing at a 4th grade level, that doesn't unpack all the information that you have, all these math topics, which is very different than in reading, which is much more linear. There's one additional issue with this. Oftentimes, the grade level is determined by a comprehensive test, usually a canned test, and it might be done online. Well, a lot of the students with special needs don't test well, or they don't test well, especially on a computer, for different reasons. Maybe it's because they do too much testing at one time. Maybe they have trouble with the technology. Maybe they get anxious, combination of all those. And so now the testing situation affects the performance. So the ability level may be there, but the performance doesn't quite reveal that because of these other issues affecting the student. So there's 2 reasons why I find the single grade level evaluation result for math ability to be problematic. So if you're given that, what I recommend that you do is to ask for more information. Even perhaps bring out a chart like this and say, well, can you break it down for me, like you would with a doctor? Doctor, what's wrong with me? I mean, is it diabetes? Is it my, I hurt my arm. I have these allergies. What exactly is the problem? They would drop me down to a B minus. And I'll let you know on one final note, what I do is when I'm working with students, I will assess them on all these different areas. So if a student's at 6th grade, I'm going to check all of these different areas and I'm going to see how they do. And then I'm not going to report out a B minus. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say maybe this is an A and this is a C and that's a B. And I actually don't use grades, but I'm just following the analogy. What I'm going to do is report things out more comprehensively. And so you could ask for something like that. So if you have questions, you can contact me. You can leave me a comment on the blog post. You can email me through the blog or email me through any other means that you happen to find, and I'd be happy to help out individually or give you more feedback. And I wish you and your well in pursuing the supports that your student needs.